The year was 1947. There was a strange silence in the air, but behind that silence was a scream that still echoes through the pages of history. It was a moment that split one nation into two and separated people from their loved ones forever. At that time, India was not just a piece of land. It was home to millions of dreams, relationships, and centuries of shared heritage. But what was about to happen changed everything. Slowly, the situation began to worsen. Rumors spread through cities, trust turned into fear. Villages, once symbols of brotherhood, were turning into grounds of suspicion and hatred. And then, that night arrived, August 14th, 1947. On one side, there was celebration of independence, flags waving, slogans echoing. But on the other side, that very night, rivers of blood were flowing. Trains, that once carried passengers to their destinations, were now returning filled with corpses. Roads, once filled with children's laughter, now echoed with screams and gunfire. Mothers ran clutching their children to their chests, but death waited at every turn. Somewhere, homes were burning. Elsewhere, entire families were wiped out in a moment. History records that more than 10 million people were displaced from their own land, and over 1 million people were lost forever in the flames of partition. But the story doesn't end here. These were not just numbers. They were incomplete stories, broken relationships, people who were neighbors yesterday and enemies today. Some lost their homes, others lost their homeland. But the greatest loss was humanity itself. Back then, borders were not just drawn on maps. They were carved into people's hearts, and that line has still not faded. Even today, many remember that last day when everything was normal, when there was no Hindu or Muslim, only human beings. But then, one decision, a few political moves, and everything changed. The partition of 1947 was not just a division of land. It was a pain that lasted for generations. And even today, when that page of history is turned, one question still echoes. Could it have been avoided? Or was it always destined to happen? Because sometimes the price of freedom is far heavier than we ever imagine.